What's up, Rockstars, and welcome to my very last update for Elden Ring until launch. This is going to be huge because we're going to be covering combat. I know you guys have been asking about that, but also we're going to be covering the pledge levels. How much is this going to cost you? What's the scope of it? What's available day one? What'll be available throughout the whole campaign? I'm going to tell you all of that right now. Thank you to my channel sponsor Into the AM. As a company that believes hard work and a great product is a proper way to conduct business, I am delighted to have them as part of the channel. They have some of the coolest graphic t-shirts around and an absolute best fit and feel that has continually exceeded my expectations. With new shirts arriving all the time and other products like boxers, hats, and even a monthly shirt club, I wholeheartedly recommend them to you. Check out the link in my description of this video for an exclusive 10% off everything they sell. Now, before we do that deep dive into Elden Ring, I do want to thank my sponsor for today's video, Into the AM. Now, I'm actually not wearing one of their shirts for once. That's because I've had a busy day. This is what I wore to work, and this is what you're getting. However, I would be much more comfortable in one of their shirts. Their shirts are amazing. You guys know that. They fit great. They feel great. They look fantastic, and they keep their image wonderful. There is actually a huge sale right now. 40% off. This flashing thing here, what this is telling you is that it's a Black Friday early access. They will have a Black Friday sale. I'll be covering that once it's time. However, the sellout risk is the issue here. That is actually important. If you see a design that you want, feel free to use my link down in the description below to save 10% on top of the 40%. That's right, it works on top of that. And save yourself 50%. That's half off. For these awesome packs. There's some new stuff that's super cool, by the way. This lion here is cool. I really need to get this Fallen King tee because for obvious reasons. Just some amazing stuff. Feel free to check them out. Again, that is linked down in the description below, and there is that 10% savings code as well. Be sure to do that as well. And now let's go and dive in. Now, the combat, they showed it in two different designer diaries. I might be swapping between them a little bit to kind of show you everything because I'm going to tell you about it kind of all at once so you can kind of, you know, get the whole picture instead of it getting piecemealed out to you. Of course, you're going to see some amazing miniatures early on, like the grafted scion and stuff like that. So you'll see these in these updates, and they're obviously all super cool. But really, the big thing here is they have a quest book, and in that quest book, you'll find an arena. Okay, now the arena is this right here. Now, there are boss ones too, we'll talk about that, but essentially you have this big book. I'm going to go ahead and just scroll down a little bit just to show you, this is the kind of the quest books you can get. And as you can see, you'll have multiple, you'll have quite a few of these. And then you have this right here, which is kind of like your story, right? That's kind of your campaign itself. And in here, you're just going to be doing lots of battles and fights and stuff like that. All right. Now, with that, you have a little grid here, and of course, you know, some objectives, some scenario setups. The boss battles have obviously a lot more going on with them and more advanced fights. This is a very basic one just to show you kind of the general gist of it. It's both spatial and what they call stances, which I think stances are going to make people think something it's not. It's not like a high stance, mid stance, low stance kind of thing. It's more of, are you being aggressive? Are you pushing the enemy? Are you being kind of neutral and kind of reacting to them? Or are you pulling back and being defensive? And it matches the video game very well. As a fan of the video game, I'll be comparing this. So this first row is the aggressive stance. When you do that, you're going to be drawing these effect cards. The effect cards are going to show all the way at the end of the second one, actually. You're going to be drawing these effect cards here. And really what this does is this is how they scale, how weapons scale. So you'll be able to build your deck and have more strength cards or non-strength cards, stuff like that. And these like strength cards or whatever it is that you're kind of speccing into, your weapon, your gear will actually like benefit from that, right? It'll scale based off of certain things. So that's kind of, you know, video game-esque, right? But when you're aggressive, when you're in that front row, you're going to be drawing extra of those. So you're going to be really hitting them hard. But then in the middle one, you have this little symbol here. And what that means is your initiative order. So again, they kind of piecemeal this out, but you'll see that you kind of have this initiative or what they call marching order. It's drawn at the beginning, and that you can manipulate that in various ways, especially bosses will, but you can as well if you're in the neutral stance. So you might see that, oh, the wolves are happening first, so I actually want to move in front of them. If you're in the neutral stance, you can kind of react to them, right? That's exactly the same kind of thing. You can see what it is and then change things up a bit. Maybe they're going in for an attack or something like that. Now, this right here is kind of the instructions on how to do the fight. They didn't dive too much into that, but it reminds me a lot of their game Monster Hunter. It had a very similar AI structure where on the card it had like different things it could do. And notice there are 3 stances for this as well. So it just depends on which stance it's in on how it's going to act, this wolf or the Godric soldier, something like that. So that's the neutral area there. The defensive one is when you kind of pull back. And what that signifies is just like in the video game, maybe you went in for an attack, but then you need to recover your endurance, or maybe you're just trying to like not get hurt, so you pull back. You're going to be drawing extra effect cards for defense, not attack, and you'll be drawing an extra card regaining your stamina, because it's kind of like an action economy system where the cards you have are your endurance. And so as you do the attacks, you become low on endurance. So you may want to move up there. You may want to start in the middle, kind of see where the opening is, then adjust to the initiative, then move forward and attack, and then pull back and recover afterwards. Very similar to how many of us that don't use magic play Elden Ring. So there is that. If you're magic, you're just going to stay in the back anyway and get them with glintstone pebbles or whatever. Which, by the way, I think they actually show. So that is totally in the game. That's a thing. There's the glintstone pebble there for you. That's important. And you see some scales here, I believe is what this is. That's my assumption. But it could be the 3 different stances as well. I'm not sure. Again, they haven't gone too deep into that, but that's kind of the general gist of it. Now, for bosses, it turns out that you actually get one of these per person. And so when you fight a boss, you combine them. So this is one person's book, another person's book, and another person's book. You can kind of see the seam right here and right here. So you combine them together. That helps the board state as well. It makes it to where you're very engaged in your fights, that you're kind of doing, and then you can all group together, do the summons as it were, right? And then actually, fight a big boss. And you see the arena for the boss is much larger as you move around more, as they are, just a bigger footprint sometimes. You also see symbols on here, like this one and these, and notice that they're kind of facing you, and that's because those are like opportune attack times and stuff like that. So depending on where you're at, depending on where they're at, you'll be able to do essentially extra damage. So it kind of does that spatial, which is again the side to side, and then the stance, which is the vertical part, so you can get right up close to them or you can pull back, etc., etc. That's basically it. You have your card, a deck that has all these effects and your equipment and consumables and all that kind of stuff, and you can build that deck and level that up and kind of spec into certain effects like strength and stuff like that to get stronger and stronger, or intelligence, or whatever it is you want to do. You can see some of the minis, by the way. They look great. From what I understand, this SFG makes some pretty darn good minis. I got Bard Song from them, and I was actually quite impressed. So that's cool. Now let's go ahead, I guess, because really, that's pretty much it. That's really what you want to know. They will have the Tree Sentinel. I hope that many people die the first time they meet him. I think that's appropriate. And the Erdtree Avatar. This is actually going to be Kickstarter exclusive, which brings us into the campaign. So, how is this going to be structured? Well, one thing you'll be happy to know is that on November 22nd, when this launches, they will have the all-in right there, right up front. You can put it in and you can just walk away. You can be done. They're not going to do the kind of the little bit more manipulative way of kind of easing you into a high price. They're going to have that sticker shock, but then when you compare it to other campaigns, it's about the same, if not less, than some other big name IP games that may have piecemealed it out to you slowly. So it just seemed like, oh, just another $30. Oh, just another $50. Oh, just another $20 here. Oh, look, another $50 expansion. And before you know it, you're spending $600. Now, we're going to go over the prices, and the all-in is fairly expensive, though it looks like it offers quite a bit as well. Let's go ahead and discuss. So, I do have an entry pledge. I want to give praise for this right now. I've been a big proponent for the last year or maybe even 2 years now for lower entry prices. Games are expensive, especially now with higher manufacturing costs and issues with, shipping things around and stuff like that. At this point, it's just last mile. It's mostly okay, but they still complain about it, whatever. The point is that it's still more expensive to manufacture a game now than it used to be. And especially with inflation and all that other kind of stuff. I mean, our loonies, our dollars, our dollaroos, all those are not worth as much as it used to be. So, let's try and make it a little bit easier. Let's make this less of an elitist kind of hobby and more open to the masses. Elden Ring sold a ton of people are going to want this. They may not be prepared to spend a bunch of money on these board games like we do. So for them, there is an entry pledge. That entry pledge is at $89, which again is actually quite impressive for an IP-based miniature game. And really what you're getting there is the Weeping Peninsula. So you don't get even the Limgrave. It's just like the Weeping Peninsula expansion, essentially. But for, to play, because they're all kind of standalone. You can play any of the areas on their own as like a mini campaign, or we can do them all as like one big epic campaign. You get to kind of choose how you do that. And you can keep doing that as they release more and more. We'll talk about that later. So that's 20 miniatures, 500 plus cards, 30 plus modular hex tiles. This is your map. I kind of covered that last time. It is random every time you play, so it's a little bit different. It's not the same map as the layout wise as the game, but it is the same map in the fact that it has the same locations, the same enemies, the same events. It's very much the video game. It's just you don't necessarily know where things are every time. It's that sense of discovery is what they're trying to do there. The rule book, you get 4 different heroes, so you can play up to 4 players. And you see there's 4 different books here, 1 here, and 3 more there, because each person gets their own. But it's all, my understanding, the same book. So don't think that there's that much 4 times the content that there necessarily is here. And then a background scenario books, there's 4 of those, which again, we kind of talked about that. Okay, now the core pledge. This is something that I think most people will have their minimum at, just because this includes the stretch goals. We'll talk about those in just a moment. But as you can see, obviously a lot more, a much bigger box. But, you still get kind of the 4 things here. It's because this is Limgrave. This is they're going to call it the Realm of the Grafted King core game, where you explore the wider Limgrave in a replayable 30 to 40 hour campaign. This one they pegged at around a 20-hour campaign. And of course it's replayable and, all sorts of other stuff. You can play different characters, spec in different ways, explore different maps, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is a 30, 40 hour campaign. And as you can see, a lot more minis, a lot more bosses, right? You got the Sentinel here. You got the big baddie over here. You have even some trolls and stuff like that. I don't know if those will be bigger fights or if they're just still really tight fights or not. When you're in Limgrave, those guys are mean. So, who knows? But yeah, you'll have Margit, and that'll be in the Stormvale Castle that they go to there. So anyway, that's really, really big there. And it talks about how they'll unlock over the course of the Kickstarter an expansion's worth of new gameplay, adding another 10 hours. So what they're going to do is they're going to do daily unlocks. And so every day they're going to unlock new stuff. And it's not necessarily just one item, it says new stuff. And that will all be essentially unlocking a full expansion for free for everybody. So you remember how this is essentially adding a little bit less than this. I said this is about 20, this will be about 10, but a lot like this. So minis, maps, quest books, map tiles, cards, all that kind of stuff. So that's what you'll get, and you'll also get our good old friend over here. Highlight him at the end, so I'll go and highlight him at the end as well. Okay, so the core pledge, $179. That's with 54 miniatures. As you can see, quite a few of them actually quite large. Some of them actually quite big. I mean, those trolls are actually really big. 1,200 plus cards, a ton of cards. 60 plus hex tiles, 200 plus tokens, and then the 4 tarnished dashboards, and the 4 things to play, plus the Iron Fist Alexander, right? He gets his cards and stuff too. That's $15, and then the daily unlocks as well, which they're saying are worth 100 plus, is what they're putting it at. So yeah, I mean, not too bad. It's $90 more, and if nothing else, you're getting all those stretch goals and stuff for 100. So the core pledge seems like a pretty solid deal once you combine those stretch goals. And again, those are guaranteed. They are daily unlocks. You're going to get every single one of them. Now they do have the all-in as well, and that's just it. I mean, I imagine they'll have the expansions available piecemeal as well. But for the pledges, it's entry, core, all-in. Now the all-in, as you can see, adds some big minis, right? A giant dragon, all sorts of stuff here, right? Okay, so this is a lot. You can see all the boxes it is. This includes the Realm of the Grafted King, the Weeping Peninsula, those two we've covered, as well as Stormvale Castle expansion, which is also playable standalone, just like the Weeping Peninsula is. And you'll also get the Erdtree Avatar and the Flying Dragon Aheel expansions. So you'll get expansions around the Erdtree Avatar and around the dragon. And if you don't know, that's a dragon that kind of flies in like you're just like minding your own business, going through a marsh, and then there's a dragon there. That's that one. So good luck with that. So that's including a 90+ hour replayable campaign, and that's again, I don't think that's including the stretch goal, right? Which is supposed to add another 10. So about 100 hours is I think what they're assuming here. And again, this is some of the biggest miniatures they've made. These guys are huge, right? This guy's really tall. Once he gets the dragon head, the dragon hand. Okay, so. Again, you can play all those singularly or in a big thing there. That is $429. Now that you've had the sticker shock, just realize that they are upfront about that day one. We talk a lot about hiding numbers, right? When it comes to what's your true funding goal. When it comes to, well, how many do you actually need to sell? And what's the all-in going to be? Instead of finding out at the end, you find out right now before the campaign even launches, which is pretty ballsy, but also, I think, commendable to at least be upfront about it. So $420, you get 104 miniatures. Again, a lot of those are quite larger. 2,500 plus cards. And this is the other thing. Like, they don't show that well. Like, this looks like a lot, but they're not showing 2,500 cards here. Like, they're not showing everything. This is a reduced view of what you're getting. 150 plus hex tiles, so a ton of maps. 500 plus tokens, and then you get 12 different tarnished to choose from. And then, of course, there are accompanying scenario books and stuff like that. 5 different rule books, one for each of the expansions, plus, of course, the daily unlocks and the Alexander miniature plus his cards, which is just super cool. He is in the color of a playable character, so that's kind of cool as well. I dig that. And yeah, that's really it, guys. That'll be live on the 22nd. I actually have a chat with them coming up here very soon. They've allowed me to still kind of ask questions and get to hear from the designer, stuff like that. I wasn't able to go to Manchester like a lot of other people were, sadly. However, they're still making the time to let me know. So if I do find out any more, I might do another update inside of a news video, but this will probably be the last Elden Ring video until we actually see the light of day on the 22nd. So again, please go ahead and check out my sponsor, Into the AM. They help this channel be as independent as it is, so a huge shout out to them, of course, and they make freaking awesome shirts. And yeah, with that, I'll talk to you guys again very, very soon. Bye, guys.